This is an introduction to RobotStudio, and in this first video I'm going to show you the basics of the software, what the different menus do, and also we're going to make a very easy simulation with the robot to show you what are the basic things about it. And what you want to do first is start a new station. So here we have the three different options, and what we will do now is this solution with station and robot controller, because if we do this, it will prepare everything for us so we can start working. So it will also insert a robot and it will be working as it should be working, and everything is ready to go. And so here you can write the name and the location, and then here there is you can choose the correct robot. And right now we are going to use this one, so IRB 1660 ID 4 kilos 1.55 meters. And when you choose that, you can just say create. And the creation usually takes a little bit of time because it has to build the geometry, and also it has to start a virtual controller, because this simulation is basically an actual simulation of real use. So also the robot has its own controller. So in actual, if you go to a workshop, you will see there is the robot is an arm, and but then always next to it there is a big box which is the brains of the robot, and the software will also simulate that brains. So then if you are exporting what you create here to a real robot, everything should work correctly, because if it works here, it should also work in real life. Okay, and now we have the robot here, and here this is the controller status, and whenever you want to work, it should say started here. And other than that, this one documents we don't need, but what we need is this output. So this is like a log of what has been happening, and if there are some kind of errors, it will write it here. So keep this open, don't close it, because this is showing you what is happening. So here, if you scroll through this, you can see all the steps that had to occur to open this robot up. And now the first thing is how to look around here in this environment. So you can zoom in and out just by scrolling the wheel, but if you want to rotate around, it's a little bit not so intuitive. So if you press the middle button or the scroll wheel and you try to rotate, you can see it's also zooming. And if you want to rotate the view, you have to hold the left button and then hold the middle button, and now you can rotate around. And I don't like that very much, so I'm going to show you how to change it. So then it's going to be the same as it's usually on 3D softwares and stuff like that. So you can just go to File and Options, and now you can scroll all the way down and go here to Behavior. And so here in Activity, so now you have Zoom and button is middle, and you can't redefine the middle button to something else if it's shown here for zoom, or if it's an option for zoom. Even if I do control right now, I still can't choose middle for something else. So we have to remove it here. So select middle here and just click remove. And now select here zoom and go to rotate. And now we don't have an option for middle button here, but if we click here with left mouse button and then press the middle mouse button, we can save it. So and now just click add, and so now it's here and we have it as an option. But be careful when you're doing this, because if you, so now if I click here with the left button and then click middle button, and now if I click left, it will redefine left or right, so any of this. So just so you know, if you have some problems, maybe you are clicking somewhere else with something else. And unfortunately, if you are working on the virtual desktop, you're going to have to do this every time. So every time that you restart, because the software resets itself to its original state if you are working on the virtual desktop. But if you are on a physical computer, then it will stay. And one more thing that we can do here is autosave. So now, right now it's 20 minutes, but I would say maybe 5 minutes is a little bit better, just so you don't lose too much of your work. And so just now you can just say OK and go to home. And now if you try it out, if you hold the middle button, you can look around like this, and you can still zoom in and out with the wheel. And sometimes you will notice that you can't zoom or move, and that's usually because you are not clicked in this environment. I'm not sure if I can no, yeah, I'm not sure how to replicate the problem, but if you notice that like, so if you're trying to zoom but you can't do it, it's just because you're not clicked into here. So if you can't move, just click somewhere, anywhere is okay, and then you can move again. Now the first thing that we'll do is we're going to attach a tool on this robot, because right now it's just this flange, so the robot can't do anything with that. And this is a welding robot, so we're going to put a welding torch on it. So go here to library, import library, equipment, and now if you scroll down, you have tools here, and we can take this one, Pinsel ID 22. So just click that, and now you can see here it appeared here in the, so this is the origin of the main coordinate system. And if you click out like this, so now you can't see it anymore, you can find it here in layout. So here in layout, it's showing all the elements of the station. If you import later other things like some kind of tables or parts or machines, they will all show here. And here you can see we have this welding torch again, and we can move around these station elements with these two options here. So this is move and this is rotate. So if I click move, and you have to have, like, now I deselected the component, so I don't see anything. But if you have this move selected and then you click on this tool, now you can move it. So now you can move it in any direction. And then the other one is here, rotate. And here you can see it's trying to rotate it according to this world coordinate system in the from the origin of the world coordinate system. And that's because here we have selected that the coordinate system that we are using is world. But if we select local, now you can see we have the option for here around its own coordinate system. So this is what you usually need. So now again you can just select any of these axes and rotate, because if you have world, it will rotate it like this around that one. So that's very rarely what you actually need. And one more thing, if you right click here on the element and go to position and set position, you can see what is the what are the coordinates of this tool. And again, it's according to the you can do it according to different coordinate systems. So for world, you can see they are these, but then if I say local, it's all 0 because it's positioned to its own coordinate system, and that is of course 0. And if you want to move this to by some exact number, you can also go to position and offset. And now if I say, for example, 100 millimeters, as you can see here, it already moved it, or if I put 1000, it moves it there by that much. And be careful if you are doing it like this, because now if I say, okay, now I moved it by on X axis, but now if I want to go to Y, it will, you have to put this back to 0, because otherwise when you click apply, it will move it in X and in Y direction. So just pay attention to that. And also here you have which coordinate system you want to use. So you can play around a little bit with these different coordinate systems to see what does what. But now we have to attach this tool to the robot. And we do that very simply. You just grab it and pull it on the robot. And do you want to update the position? Yes. And now it's here. So attached to the robot. And if you want to move it now, you can't, because it's attached to it. So if you would want to move it again, like freely move, you have to right click it and then put detach here, so then it could be again free. But right now it's not. What? Oh, that was some kind of bug, I think, because I didn't actually detach it, but still this appeared. So I think I now have to, now I have to actually detach it. So now it can stay where it is, and now attach it again, and yes, update, yes, replace. Okay. Okay, so now it's back there. And now the next here is jog joint, and with this you are moving each individual jog, each individual joint of the robot. And as you can see, the tool is moving together with it, because now it's attached to the robot and it's part of it. So now you can grab each of these joints and move them around, and it's only that one. It doesn't affect any other ones, or it affects those that are after it, but they in relative position they stay the same. Next we have here jog linear and jog reorient. So that one. So now you can click anywhere on the robot, but the movement is always going to be here in the end of the robot. So at the tool center point, or TCP, which if you don't know what TCP is, you should look it up, because it's important part of the robotics. So it means basically where is the interaction point of the robot, and here this is the welding gun, it's here in the end of the torch. And because the torch is not actually touching the object, but there is a wire coming out, the tool center point is here a little bit away from the torch. So right now we have world selected here, so this we can move it here in the world coordinate system. But if we want, for example, local, so now it's going in its own coordinate system, so you can see it. So this is the tool coordinate system. So if we are moving in that, so for example, it can go in its own direction, like up and down. And also then you have other options here, so also you can move in your own custom made coordinate system, but that will come later. And jog reorient is the same as before, as here the rotate. It's you are just rotating around, and same as for the coordinate system, you can choose around which one you are going to be rotating. And one thing that you should be careful here about is that you have here the correct tool selected. So right now we have only one tool, but later there might be more, like several tools, usually 2 or maybe 3 on one robot. So for example, there could be also some kind of gripper at the same time here. So you have to take care that you have here the correct one selected, the one that you actually want to use. Because for example, so now we have weld gun, and we are rotating around this point here, but if we choose here tool 0, we are rotating about around this point here, so where the flange was. And as you can see, this is a totally different thing as around its own tool, like the tools TCP. So be careful about that, what you have selected here. Okay, and let's now create something with this robot. So I'm going to put it in a little bit more natural position, or not natural but basic, so we don't hit any limits too fast. Now I can show you what happens if you get lost. You can just right click and put view all, and it will return you back to your robot. Okay, so put a little bit more up like this. We're going to create 3 targets. So targets are the points that the robot is going to be following or trying to achieve. So let's make the first one here. So we can just say teach target here. And here you have a warning that you are using the default coordinate system. And this is not best practice that you use the default one. You should always use custom coordinate system, but we're going to leave that for later. So right now you can just say don't show this again, and yes. And now if you go here to paths and targets, open this one and here, and work objects and targets, work object. So work object is a coordinate system in RobotStudio. And now you can see here we have a target created, target 10. And if we move our robot, let's put local here. So now you can see also here in free space, you can see where the target is. So I'll put this one a little bit down, and I'll teach this one, and I'll go like this, and another. So now we have a kind of a triangle here. And if we move it again a little bit away, so now you have 3 targets here. And now if we select all of these, so you can just click on the first one and then hold shift and click on the last one and right click, and you can say add to new path. And you can see here with the yellow line, this is the path that the robot is going to be following. And here in paths and procedures, it's showing you path 10. And if you open it here, you have the individual move instructions. And this first one is always just saying to the robot, go to this target no matter where you are. So because to execute this path, the robot has to be at this point. So the first instruction is always go to this point here. And let's try to run this. So if we right click the path and then say move along path, let's see if it's going to work. Yeah, so you can see the robot is now moving along that path. And to make it a little bit easier to see, we can select an option that the software is drawing a line of where the robot is moving. So it's drawing where the TCP is moving. And to do that, we can go here to simulation and TCP trace. And then we can say enable TCP trace. And we can close this. And go back to home. And now let's try again. But I'm suspecting that it won't work right now, but let's try. So it might work, or might not work for you. So for me right now it's not working, but I think this is a current bug, and I think that eventually this is going to get fixed, because a few versions back this was actually working, but right now there is some kind of problem here with this. But there is a way to fix it, and we have to skip a bit ahead for this to programming. So because there are 2 different ways to program the robot. So it's this what we were doing now, and then it's an option to program it by writing text commands. So we're going to skip a little bit ahead the text commands, but it's pretty simple, so I think we can do it. So what we have to do is first go here to controller, and it says synchronize, so click here and say synchronize to rapid and click this, and now you can just select everything here and say OK. And I'm not really going to be explaining what we are doing right now, because it's easier if we do it all later in a later lesson, because otherwise we are spending too much time right now. And now go here to the Rapid tab and double click here Rapid and T-Rob and module 1. So here is this text programming environment, and go here where it says cross main and delete this green text if it's shown on your screen. And now you can just type here path 10, and when you start typing it, it already gives you here a shortcut. So you can just you can either double click it here, or you can go down with the arrow and then just press tab, and now put a semicolon, because all the lines have to end with a semicolon. So you can see it here and here, so put the semicolon in the end of the line. And now you can actually close this one, and yes, apply changes. And now if we press here play, let's see. Okay, now you can see it's drawing a line of where it's driving around. And yeah, this now ended. And but don't use this play otherwise, because so this play only looks into the text programming. So whatever you are doing here in home, anything that you create here, this play doesn't know that it's there. It's only looking here in the Rapid, so in the text programming. So you shouldn't be using it right now when you are testing your own setup, whatever you create here. Okay, so now we have here these nice lines following where the robot is moving, so we can see it better. And as you can see here, the robot didn't go all the way to this point or here, and that is because there are settings of how precise the robot should be, or how close to the target it should approach that it can mark it as done, and that is called zone. So you can click here on one of the move instructions and press right button and go to edit instructions, and here you can edit different things about this move instruction. And let's select all of this right now, because if you go here to path 10, that it would do all of them together, it doesn't work. You have to go select this first one and then select all of them together. So now we are editing all of them at the same time. And then here we have this zone, and we have on the top we have fine, and on the bottom we have zone 200. So if we select fine, it will go all the way to the points. So let's put apply here, and you can see already here this path moved all the way to the point. And if we say now execute move instruction or move along path, you will see, so it goes all the way to this point and to this. and then if we select zone 200, that is the least precise, and apply, you can see there is a very big curve here. So if we put move along path, you can see there is a really big radius that it does. And what the point of this is that often it doesn't have to go all the way to the points. If you are, for example, moving somewhere that you don't, the robot doesn't have any job at that point, it just has to move through that point. So that's one use for this. And the second, maybe more important use for this is that if you have zone fine and it goes to each point, the robot will stop at each of those points. So it moves here and then it stops for a moment and then continues this way, stops and continues this way. And if you are doing something like welding or gluing, that is not good, because when it comes then here and it stops, it will deposit more material. But if you use zone, it will not, it maybe still slows down a little bit, but it will keep the speed the whole time. Depends on how sharp of an angle it has to make. So for example here it had to slow down, but here this is such a big turn, I don't think it had to slow down. So that's what you need it for. But again, this is a little bit more as what you really need to know right now, but just so you know what's the point of this. And another thing that we can change here is the speed of the robot. So if we say this, so this first one, let's say this is, let's make this one slow, let's say this is 1000, I mean sorry 100, and then we select this second move and let's say this is 3000, and let's put the zone a little bit less so it's a bit easier maybe to see, so or it doesn't take such a big shortcut. Let's say 50 right now and apply. Oh, actually on the first one I forgot to apply, maybe, oh, on both of them I forgot to apply. So you always have to, when you change something, so this was 100, you always have to remember to apply here. So now it's saved. And no, the second one, 3000 and apply. And let's move along path now. Let's see how it goes. So now it's going first with 1000, it's approaching this one, and now it's going to go with 100, and you can see it's going quite slowly. And then for here it should now start going faster again. Yeah, so it's faster again. So this you can also play around a little bit with zone and with speed, just so you get a little bit of a feeling of what each of them mean. And one more thing that is important here is here motion time. So we have joint and linear, and to demonstrate to you what this does, I'm going to create a new path, tools, and so I'll move the robot here and I'll try to put it in a little bit more basic position. And this one, okay, like this. And a bit more back and a bit more down. This doesn't matter so much, but just so I don't crash into any limits. So I'm going to create a target here, And now I'm going to rotate this robot, but I'm going to only move it along like with this joint. And I'm going to teach this target, and now I'm going to create a new path. So add to new path. So now we have here path 20, and I'm going to leave this approach as linear, and then and this actual move I'm going to put to joint. So edit instruction and joint, and apply. And we can also hide this path so it's not interfering. So if you right click, go to view, and just deselect visible. So now the path is hidden. And let's see how it looks like now if I put move along path. So now you can see it's going in a straight line, linear, but now it's going under with a curve. So let's try again. And if you look at the robot when it's moving in linear, you will see all of its joints are moving. But now when it's moving back with the this joint movement, it's only moving this one joint here. Let's try again. So now all of these joints are moving, but now only one joint is moving. So this is because when we have the linear motion, the robot is it has to follow a linear line, and that's why it has to work hard for it. But if we have a joint motion, it just knows, okay, here is my destination, and then it finds the most efficient way to get there. And in this case, the most efficient way is to make a longer path, but it doesn't have to move around so much. Like only this one joint here is rotating. So, and why this is important is if you have some defined path that you have to follow, for example in welding, you have to use linear, because if you have joint motion, the movement is not predictable. It will go whatever the robot decides is best. But joint is really good because it's faster. So if you have to move in free space, for example, just if you pick something up, when you have a pick and place operation, you pick something up, and you have to carry it on the other side. That's a movement for joint, because it can go, it doesn't matter where it goes, like it can go a little bit more here or a little bit more there. It just has to get there as fast as possible. And one thing that is also important, that usually this first command in the line, which is just that it's telling the robot to go to this point no matter where it is, should be a joint movement. And I'll show you why. So if I put the robot now here in this point, and I try to run this path, and the first command is go linearly from wherever you are to this point. And let's see if this is going to work now. Here you can see already there is an error, robot axis configuration error. And this is because if we look like this from the top, if the robot would try to go from this point to this in a straight line, it would crash into itself. And quite often you have to be careful that you don't tell the robot to crash into itself, because they might not be so smart that they know where they can go not to crash to itself, but right now here this one knows. So because it can't, there is no way to go from here to here in a straight line. It's saying there is an error, and whenever there is some kind of error, you can see here this is still running. Now you can't do anything here. So if I try to say, for example, move along this path, it's not available. And also here simulation is blinking. That means that it's performing simulation. And what now the problem is, it's trying to calculate how to go there, but there's no way to go there. So what you have to do is just you have to stop it here with this button, or if you go here in simulation with this button. But no point going there if you're already here in home. So you can just stop it here, and now it's again ready to go. But let's try now if we put here, if we change this first command into joint. So go to edit instructions and change motion type to joint and apply. Let's see now. Hopefully now it works. Yeah, so as you can see now it's going around. And now it came here, and it will now perform this path. And yeah, now we still have this first one that was quite slow, so that was kind of so slow, but yeah, now again it's here. And we can close this. So remember that always the first motion instruction has to be a joint. And one last thing, here in the bottom of the screen you can notice we have these different options that we have been talking about now available, but these are only the settings for new paths that you are creating. So with this you can't edit these existing paths, so that you would click on this one and just change its properties here. That doesn't work. But if you change here, for example, if I put here joint and I don't know, 600 speed, and I create a new path, now these new ones are joined with speed 600. And yeah, I think you noticed already, so if there is a arrow with that is full, that means it's a linear path, and if it's dashed, that means it's a joint. So yeah, remember about this, so it's only for when you're creating new paths. And yeah, I think that's all for now. You can now try to make some more paths on your own, and yeah, just try to explore a little bit how this is. And one thing, right now don't create targets here with create target. Just use teach target, because this is a little bit more complicated. So of course you can try and you will find the solution, but yeah, it's a little bit more complicated. So just so you know, if you'll be creating targets with this, it won't work directly. You have to take some extra steps. So, but if you are moving the robot around manually and then teach target, that is always going to be working correctly.